Alex Runnison here, Joint Head of Circular Economy Strategy here at DEFRA, my team lead on producing or developing the strategy that we intend to publish later this autumn in tandem with the Circular Economy Task Force. If we could have the next slide, please. So hopefully many of you will have seen this slide or something that looks a lot like it already in much of the engagement that we've been doing with yourselves since we started developing the strategy. I brought it back up here because I wanted to hone in, which I'll do a little bit later, on exactly where in this process we are with developing the strategy. The short answer is we are in a final go round that middle cycle that you're looking at. So we're starting to wrap up the stakeholder engagement that we've been doing with you over the preceding months, and we're moving into final conversations with ministers across government on the content and format of the strategy, hopefully giving us the approval that we need to publish in good time later this autumn. This comes off the back of a huge amount of engagement with you, and we have been enormously grateful to all of you and hugely impressed by as well the quality of input that you've consistently given us over previous months. I think we've managed to have well over now 1,000 individual conversations, or at least managed to reach well over 1,000 of you in those conversations. The quality of the input that we've had has been absolutely fantastic. Loads of detail. You can tell that sort of the enormous passion that you have for the circular transition, and it's been really engaging to speak with so many of you who want to see us get this right. And your ideas for doing that have been immensely valuable. So I'm really glad that we took the time that we did to try and engage as much as possible. I think it's borne a lot of fruit, and I'm even more confident now that the way in which we want to take the strategy forward, that is publishing it for consultation, is the best way, because it ensures that we get another round of your feedback in a more formal way. We can do more engagement on top of that, sort of face-to-face and virtually, and ensure that we're really eking out every possible insight that we can get from you, and set ourselves up best as possible for the coming circular transition. So that's where we are at the moment in the overall process, broadly on track, wrapping up final engagement for this phase, getting stuff through ministers, and then looking to publish. I'll say a little bit more on for those less familiar with the strategy on the next slide, if we can have that up, please, what it's trying to do, and then I'll come to a few other bits like how it's changed, for example, over the past few months in development. I'll skim this because I think most of you will hopefully be familiar with this, but what our strategy is trying to do is to give life to the government's manifesto commitment to move to a zero waste economy, with the strategy looking to set up various things such as how we'll develop new targets to galvanise action over the economy and what we'll do there, how we think we should be utilising enablers that cut right across the economy to get the investment that we need, to get the business change that we need, to get the behaviour change that we need, and so on. How we intend to work with different types of stakeholder in order to drive that change, noting that sort of this is a whole economy transition, so we're going to have to meaningfully engage with all of you in the long term and over the long term. The strategy will comprise itself a series of sector-based roadmaps that will look to delve into detail across a range of 6 sectors, which I'll come on to, detailing the interventions the government will make in those sectors across this Parliament and the next. And then quickly a word on scope. Again, hopefully you're familiar with this, but it will be England only, given that the devolved governments have their own or are about to publish their own strategies. But we'll of course be thinking about where we should be delivering for nation across what we want to do. So I would expect our strategy to cover a range of issues which are devolved, but which we might want to deliver on a for nation basis. Next slide, please. So again, a slide which many of you will be familiar with, but there have been some changes over the past months. Our priority sectors on the left, i.e. those sectors for which we will publish roadmaps in the first tranche, are unchanged. We've got agri-food, built environment, chemicals and plastics, textiles, transport, and electronic and electrical equipment. So those are the first 6 roadmaps that we will publish. I fully expect as part of the consultation responses that you'll tell us that other sectors deserve and will need roadmaps in the coming years, to which I suspect we will fully agree with. So that is not the list of sectors that will only get roadmaps. That is the list of sectors that will get the first tranche of roadmaps when we publish the strategy for consultation later this autumn. And then we will also cover, as I mentioned in the slide above, some cross-cutting enablers, so factors that drive right across the economy and are therefore sort of immensely relevant to the circular transition. So, for example, what is the wider global context? Why does that matter? How do we sit within it? And what drivers or kind of motives does that give us in the circular space? through to how on earth are we going to govern this transition, noting that it's a lot of good, what's going to be a lot of delivery over a very long period of time, and therefore it's going to need to be efficiently managed. Sort of how does government spend its money, so public procurement, what weight does that bring to bear on the circular transition, and how can we leverage it to best effect? All of those factors are relevant, and we're going to need to say underneath all of them what we intend to do in the strategies. You can expect to see that. How these crosscuts are grouped and described is slightly different to how we've been kind of picking them apart in previous updates. So what you see in front of you is broadly what we are aiming to run with in the coming strategy, pending some further final tweaks with various cross-cutting factors grouped together, given the nature of the interventions that we want to make and sort of the relevance that they bear to each other. So that's a kind of a minor format and presentational change, which will hopefully allow for a better, more comprehensive and more readable strategy. And that is the only substantive difference in terms of format, structure, and topics that we're looking to cover to what you've previously heard. If we go to the final slide, please. Then what does that mean for next steps? What this sort of flow diagram does is delve a little bit further into that final go around the cycle in the first slide. So starting with the final engagement that we're doing with you to get kind of ideas in, and then obviously we're shifting into final policy development and sign off with ministers. That is a lengthy process because we've got not only DEFRA ministers to get through, but also many other ministers at other departments who will own some of the interventions that will be in the strategy and across the roadmaps. So we'll need to drive collective agreement across government to the whole strategy, and we'll also need ministerial sign-off for specific measures, particularly where they sit outside of DEFRA. So navigating summer and conference recess means that we're starting that process now to ensure that we can publish as planned in the autumn. We'll be looking to run webinars ahead of and during the consultation period to make sure that you're all aware of what is happening, what we're aiming to get out of the consultation, how we can help you to help us, if you like. So you can expect to see plenty more face-to-face and online engagement from us during the consultation itself and in advance, the run-up to it. We'll publish the consultation, again, as I said, hopefully on time in the autumn. And then, as I've just mentioned, we'll do lots more engagement throughout that process before we eventually sort of sort out our consultation response and publish the final version of the strategy in white paper form. So that is all to come. So lots more work to do, but an enormous amount done. And I'd just like to reiterate the thanks that I gave at the top of this update for everything that you've fed in so far. It is not your final opportunity to feed in. There will be plenty more as promised, but what we've had from you today has been immensely helpful. So that is broadly it. What I want to do is probably come back to this forum again in the coming months with a bit more detail on the contents of the strategy. I've reflected in previous updates on the sort of broad themes that will be in there in policy terms beyond the priority sectors and crosscuts, which I won't repeat in detail here. But I'll sort of explore a little bit more, hopefully on future forums as agendas allow, in the run-up to consultation, so that you can start to get your thinking done in advance before we open that consultation up.